Wayne Doorband here for the bi-weekly NTP Ceed webinar huddle that we hold here at our Northern Colorado headquarters in Loveland, Colorado, both live here at our site and also going out over the web to those of you that are watching. Enjoy what we have for you today. All right. Hi, everybody. Wayne Doorband here from Northern Colorado. I think we did it this direction last time. We've moved our studio around, but you can see we've got a nice green wall behind us. It didn't intend it to be a green screen, but that's kind of the way it shows up. We're so excited to have you with us. We've got Emily over here helping. She's actually doing a periscope of our presentation. And then we're really excited. We've got Nancy Irlbeck with us, Dr. Nancy Irlbeck from Colorado State University. And she's going to talk to us today about all kinds of fun things involving sustainability and agriculture and the topics that we enjoy hearing about. Up front, I'm going to tell you that you can put your questions in the chat section that's right next to your screen, or on Periscope. You can just put your questions on, and Emily will pass them on to me. We've got Deb that's over on the production side of things. We never cease to amaze, because every time we have something a little bit that goes wrong, if you wouldn't mind, whoever's online right now, if you would just go ahead and just type in, "We hear you fine," and "We see you fine," because Deb was having a little bit of trouble with her headset a little earlier. Mark, I know you're probably out there, so if you don't mind just throwing something into the chat section and just tell us that you hear us all right. So we'll go for about an hour today. I'm going to ask Nancy a bunch of questions at the front end just about life and different things, and then she's going to give us a nice little presentation. You can ask questions whenever you'd like. Nancy's an educator, as I am too. We're used to being interrupted at times. And so, Nancy, just say hi to the group out there.
Hello, beautiful people.
And tell us where you're at.
I am in my office at Colorado State University in the College of Agricultural Sciences.
And tell us when school starts, and how does your summer change from when it looks like everybody's saying everything that they hear fine, the video is blurry. That's interesting. Mark, is your video blurry? I see Ron saying that the video is blurry. It usually isn't, and we're seeing it looking clear here. Nancy, am I looking clear to you? Your picture's great on mine. So.
You're a little bit blurry.
Okay. Yeah, you're coming in a little bit that way. Remember, this isn't television quality, but we'll get it good. Actually, the slides will come in awesome. So,
excellent.
So when does school start there?
School starts Monday, and everywhere you go on campus, there are students. They have returned. It's exciting. The energy level of campus is just exploding. It's a phenomenal feeling.
And your office is at the Ag School. Where on campus? Where are you at on campus?
I'm in Shepherdson Hall. I'm just south of the administrative building.
Okay. Beautiful part. Beautiful part of the campus.
It is. Right south of the Oval. I love the Oval with the old trees.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place. And how long have you been at CSU?
I've been here 26 years. I'm on my 26th year. And there are trees that were little when I came, and they're great big now.
And we'll talk a little bit about your career as we go along here. Okay. So why don't we just start with the kinds of questions. I think we sent you a list of some things, so we don't really try to surprise folks.
Okay.
Mark, blurry at our end. Yeah, it looks like we might be having a little, well, you know what? You just got a lot clearer. So maybe it's a connection issue. How many folks we got out there on Periscope now?
4.
4. All right. Very cool. So tell us a little bit about your sort of younger life. Tell us about what you did where you grew up, and sort of just how you kind of got to where you're at CSU now.
Okay, and part of it is in my presentation, but I grew up in Iowa. I'm a pig farmer's daughter, and not only pigs, but we had cattle, and I used to say dogs, cats, and kids because I was the oldest of 8. Iowa State for my undergraduate and my master's. I went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for my PhD, and I came here in January of '90. So my life has been spent in education, working with students, and I figure I'm the luckiest person in the whole wide world because I need students and I need animals, and I have both. So what more can you ask? That's the brief version.
And you didn't go a postdoc route, so you went right?
I did not. I went directly into the classroom. I came campus ABD, all but dissertation. So I wrote my dissertation after I arrived at Colorado State.
Were you tenure track when you started, or were you on something where you were? Wow. And tell people how rare that is today.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Yeah. I was one of those late bloomer students. I was 36 when I arrived here. So maybe it was my utmost maturity, who's to say. But no, most PhDs now do at least one postdoc. And what a postdoc, for those of you who don't know, is working in a lab with someone who has credibility and a reputation in the area you want to be in. So there's always that little more extra that they're wanting.
So back to the, again, early childhood, you said you grew up on a pig farm then? So that's correct?
I grew up with a diversified livestock farm. What I learned at my father's knee, you can't read in a book, you can't learn out of a book. And so I'm a very strong component of hands-on education, experiential learning, applying what you know, and you'll hear that from my talk.
Awesome. Brothers and sisters?
I'm oldest of 8.
Oh, you said that. Oh,
yes,
wow.
Yes.
And so when did your babysitting life start?
When I was 11. When I was left by myself. Before, I was always babysitting. My first memory is when I was 2, looking over the bassinet at my baby sister.
Wow.
That is my very first memory.
Do you have either a funny or a story about your own baby when you were being the babysitter that's kind of an amusing one?
Oh, when the cows got out.
Oh, wow.
How do you take care of the wee ones in the room and the cows are running down the road? That makes interesting.
Right.
And that was when we still had crank phones, and you just didn't have a cell phone to call someone.
And they were party lines also?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I learned to speak German as a child, so I could hear what the old ladies were saying about me.
And you maybe said it and I didn't hear. What part of Iowa? So northeast, northwest, south? What part?
West Central. West Central. If you draw a line between Omaha and Des Moines, it's dab in the middle. Okay. You may have heard, if anyone's heard of the distillery Templeton Rye, that's my hometown, Templeton, Iowa.
Okay. I don't know whether Deb told you this when you were prepping, but we lived in Sioux Falls. I was a professor at Augustana in Sioux Falls, on the border, with, the western one. There's an Augustana on the other side of Iowa also. But, you know, obviously a huge ag area and similar
all
sort
of
Iowa. Yeah. So tell us, when you were a young girl, when you were in your teens, let's say, and it was just a beautiful Saturday afternoon, you didn't have anything else you really had to do, there weren't chores you had, what would we find you doing? What did you do for fun?
If it was a good day, I'd be out in the grove. I made a lot of, you'll laugh at me, but little huts out of fallen logs. I had little wooden huts all over our grove, or out with the animals. If it was rainy outside or too cold, I would be reading a book. A voracious reader.
So tell me, what kinds of things did you enjoy then?
Science fiction, fantasy.
Oh, okay.
With a heavy end on the science. When I did my GREs to go into graduate school, my verbal score was my highest. Almost perfect, and I still attribute that to reading all of the science fiction fantasy, because if I didn't need or know a word, I always had a little dictionary, and I was looking up the words.
Wow.
So.
Very cool. You talked about something a couple times, and just again, for our audience, because some of them won't know, tell everybody what a grove would mean in an Iowa farm.
Yes, the grove would be a grove of trees, a lot of trees. We had heavy underbrush, and I just loved to disappear and make a little house, a little hut. And I would play house, even at 15, I would be in my little house and be reading a book. It was just, I needed a quiet place. And when you're at home sharing bedrooms with your little brothers and sisters, because there was one room for the boys and one room for the girls, finding solitude for me. That or I'd be with the animals.
Very neat. When you were when did you make the decision that you were going to go to college? Because that probably also wasn't something that everybody did.
That was interesting. I went to a Catholic high school, and I was first generation, which means none of my parents had ever gone to academia. And if it hadn't been for my science teacher, Sister Frances Xavier, I would have never gone, because she convinced me I was smart enough to go to college. And I remember going home and telling my father that I was going to go to Iowa State and study to be a veterinarian. And rather the warm reception I had expected, he told me very clearly that girls don't go to college. Girls get married and have grandbabies. And I needed to get off my high horse. And so I defied my father and left. But because I defied my father, none of my brothers and sisters have ever gone to college. I'm the only one.
Wow. Wow. So it shows you what an influence will have. And you were the one that was willing to sort of buck what your father. So how did that relationship develop then afterwards? And you went to college. Did he accept it? And how did that mature?
Yeah, he never. I don't think he ever did accept it, even to this day. However, I was in college for 3 years and decided to quit. That my father was right, and I called him up, and he came and got me. And I worked with what is now the NRCS, was then the Soil Conservation Service. And I worked as a technician with the federal government for 4 years, and there were no animals. And so that is what, in '81, caused me to go back to Iowa State and finish my animal science undergraduate degree.
Well, you were persistent.
Yes, yes, but it took my father a long time. Now he still does not understand what I do. He's very proud of me. About 2 years ago, he heard me speak for the first time when I was at Iowa State as a visiting alumni lecturer. He came, my family surprised me, and he came to hear me speak. So that was an eye-opening experience for him.
Awesome. Well, again, it sounds like it's getting better even. So, you and I joked before, you started talking about teaching an old dog new tricks. It sounds like your dad can still learn some new tricks.
Yeah, in his 80s. Yeah. But don't tell him it's something new, because he won't want to do it.
Yeah.
He's a stubborn German.
And how active is he still in the farming?
He's not. He had a stroke about 10 years ago, and so my younger brother is now full-time taking care of the farm, and so my father is retired. And how does
obviously his stroke had some impact on that, but is he comfortable, or does he get edgy, and how does he handle the retirement?
My mother and he go to the casinos, and they love to play the slot machines. So for their anniversary and birthdays, we give them bags of quarters. And that's his greatest joy, that and visiting.
Awesome.
So,
you mentioned reading. Tell us a book that you've read somewhat recently that you just really enjoy, that's really something that's on your head, because every time I ask this, people write it down, and you'll find people reading books. So tell us something you've read recently that you enjoy.
Oh, this one's a little bit obscure. I visited the library because my house is full of books, and my husband says, do we need to keep all of those books? And the books are like my friends. And so I have taken to getting books from the library. And the one that caught my attention was Dirty Chick. And so I picked up this Dirty Chick, and it was, because I lived in New Zealand is what it caught my attention. A couple got on a sailboat and went from San Francisco to New Zealand. And in New Zealand, they started a farm. And the trials and errors as they tried to bring in goats and livestock and chickens to create a sustainable farming system was quite hilarious. So Dirty Chick.
Wow.
They had a disabled child, and so it was more of an autobiography, and I found it quite interesting.
So I have some good news for you.
Okay.
You have room on the bookshelf right there back behind you. You can put some more books.
Well, see, I'm moving offices. That's why I have everything's full. So if you look on the floor, you'll see there are boxes of books.
I see that. I gotta throw this one out though. Have you ever been to the Centennial Auction in Fort Collins?
I have. They had one this last Saturday. I wasn't able to go.
Yeah, well, I was, and I'm a regular there, and my best finds are boxes of books that you could get for like $1.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also a book rat in that way. So, and I actually have not checked a book out of a library in so long, because if I don't have it and I don't buy it, I have it on my Kindle. But I actually kind of admire that you went and got some at the library. So.
Oh, I go for audio tapes. I drive back and forth. It's 30 minutes each way. And I use one way I come in, it's NPR. Going home, it's an audio book. So I have my routine.
So let's go to that, and I think you'll talk about it in your presentation. But so you're living on a farm, it sounds like now, right?
Uh-huh.
And 30 minutes. So give us just perspective of where from Fort Collins.
Okay, where it is from Fort Collins, it's northeast.
Where from the university? So where you are from the university.
Okay, it would be right south of Cheyenne, a little bit south of Carr, northeast of Wellington.
Okay. And so you take like Al Canyon or something to get to your place?
It's a little bit. It's about a mile south of Al Canyon Road.
Okay.
Yep. And
go ahead.
And east.
And east. Yeah, I have friends that live on Al Canyon, about a mile west of the interstate, and that live on the south side there. How about quotes? What are some quotes that you can think of that have stood with you through your life, or that you really can remember from whoever? Anything you can share with the audience. I always like to hear about those. If you dream it, you can do it. Very cool. I get very frustrated within the academic setting. We tend to, many tend to train students the way they were trained. And that training traps the students within a system and doesn't allow the freedom of thought, in my mind. This generation is incredibly intelligent, and we need to work with those students. We don't train them. We may help educate them and guide them towards learning, but we need to challenge them to think outside of the box, to work together in teams. My very good friend is Temple Grandin, who has changed the world with animal handling. And she says the world needs all kinds of minds. And so working with students to work in teams is critical. So if you can dream it, you can do it, by Alan Sandowich. Very cool. Did Deb tell you that we had the privilege of hearing Temple? I didn't get to go. Deb was at our last Alpaca Association meeting down in Denver just 3 weeks ago or so, a couple weeks. Yeah, she's amazing. Mark asks, one of our attendees here, what's your favorite sci-fi book? I love Anne McCaffrey's series, the Pern series, P-E-R-N. That or the Dearney series by, the book just went out of my mind, but Anne McCaffrey is my most favorite. That or Frank Herbert, the Dune series. Let's say, other than your parents and other than the teacher that influenced you to go to college, so let's just take it post-collegiate, post-college time frame. Is there a name of someone who's influenced you, whether it be just in your personal life or your business life in some sort of a way? Two. One is Temple, as I had indicated. The other one is Linda Tarr Whalen. Linda Tarr Whalen is a former UN ambassador for women's issues, and her webinar, I attended one of her webinars on transformational leadership, and we're needing more women in leadership roles. It's not that men are bad leaders or women are better, it's that we need the approach of both men and women. And until we have balanced leadership, 30% minimum of each gender, we will not have effective leadership. You probably know the numbers then. How badly skewed are we today? How low is the women's percentage, and just generally those kind of stats?
In 1989, 189 nations joined and agreed that there would be that in all of their leadership committees, roles, deciding factors, that there would be at least 30% women. Using that value that the United States signed, we are ranked 27th behind Syria, and Afghanistan is right behind us.
Wow. And do you know the percentage? It's not approaching 30, obviously. Is it in the 20?
No, I don't know the exact numbers.
What would
but as a woman leader, it is not easy.
Would you guess it's in the teens even? Is it that low?
At least.
Yeah. Wow. That's just not encouraging. We need to do a better job of that.
It's very disheartening when you work so hard.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to let you transition into your presentation, because then I'm going to have a few other questions afterwards. So I think you're going to take control of the screen, and I think you've got some slides to share. So why don't you go ahead and do that, and then we'll end up afterwards with some other questions for you.
Okay, I'll go through them fairly quickly, or if I think that I'm getting a little bit of short of time, so I'll leave you some time. If you need to interrupt me, just go ahead and whistle at me.
I'll do.
This is a slide that I use to start most of my talks, and I kind of think that I'm the wolf in sheep's clothing, because I'm going to be different than what you expect, and so I use it in all of my slides. I came to Colorado State University to Animal Sciences in 1990 in predominantly teaching. The building has changed now, we've renovated it, but when I moved into it, it wasn't even this updated. But I'm an animal nutritionist by training. My area of expertise is I was at Denver Zoo for 22 years. I have become a comparative nutritionist over the years. In 2005, I became associate dean, and I just stepped down as associate dean. I had indicated that 10 years is enough for everyone. And so I'm moving on. Exactly where I'm going, I don't know. But I believe fervently when one door closes, another will open. And so I am looking forward. I'm already making a few inquiries several different ways. But I think I'm going to be working with the Master of Ag program and guiding graduate students in the area of sustainable agriculture and the new areas of ag. So I'm very excited about the upcoming time. In my free time, which I started in 1950, or in 1950, heaven help me, I was born in 1955, but I started this when I was 50 years old, and Anarum Sheep Company. And ANI is for animal, ROO is because I lived in Australia, and Z for New Zealand, so Anarum's Sheep Company. My passion is with animals, or my first set of quads on the screen, and working with youth. So animals and youth. As I indicated, I'm a pig farmer's daughter. I've kind of given you a little bit of that scenario. When I was a child, from the first time I heard the story Rumpelstiltskin, I wanted to spin, I wanted to weave, I wanted to work with fiber. My path took me, again on sabbatical, to Australia. I had a wonderful time in '98. It changed my whole way. And even though I went at that time more with an emphasis on the marsupials, I did do a lot of the sheep work there. In 2002, I went to New Zealand, again with a group of students, but working with the spinners, the weavers, the sheep industry there definitely changed me. I'm not cheap, but I am frugal. And I found a spinning wheel in a junk shop, and I guess that's what it did to change me. I came back, sold my house in Loveland, and bought land with a house. You can see the house, and started my barn in 2004. And 2 months later, I had sheep in the barn, and I was incredibly excited. This is it today with all of the hay and the view that I get to look out at every morning. I love fiber. My hands get into fiber. It's addicting working with the fiber, whether that's weaving, spinning, creating beautiful objects or clothing from it. And the animals that I selected were wool sheep, specifically rare wool breeds. I like being able to help maintain, and I do this with poultry also, so poultry and sheep. But the breeds that I have, according to the Livestock Conservancy, the Romandale CVM in the United States, it is the only true U.S. breed, is critical. And I have probably 30 of those ewes. The American Caracal, and this is, again, in the United States, is threatened. I work very closely with the Alliance, and right now we figure there are less than 1,000, and I have about 50 of those. The Lincoln are globally threatened. I have a significant number of those ewes. The Wensleydale, Teeswater, and the Blue-faced Leicesters that I'm going to show you pictures of them as we go through are not really in the U.S. other than we brought them in with semen through artificial insemination. Right now, no semen can come into the U.S. because of concern with the virus that can move into our animals, and so there's no new genetics coming into the U.S. from the UK, from Europe right now. This is a Romandale CVM. Another picture, this is another ewe here. I used artificial insemination, brought in semen from New Zealand. It was brought in before the doors were closed. So this is a Perrindale cross, trying to improve the genetics. I also use the Merino influence because the gene pool is so very, very small. And just some people, this is a little one that was born this spring. We called him Tractor. But some call our CVMs Rocky Mountain Merino because of the fine quality wool that we have. This is a Teeswater. It's one that I pulled off the Breeders Association page, and this is one of my little young ones. And I was very proud of that little girl. This is a little Wensleydale. You can see that the Wensleydale, and I'll go back one slide to the Teeswater, are very similar except for the markings on the face. But the fleeces are incredible. They just are luminescent. This is a Lincoln. Again, these are threatened. This is a little white Lincoln, little ram lamb, and here is a colored little ram lamb to give you an idea of the Lincolns. At one time, they were the largest, and naturally occurring, they're still the largest. You start looking at some of the club breeds with the genetics that they've used, they will be larger now, but these are still considered the naturally most occurring breed. And my semen has gone into the germplasm lab in case something ever happens on the face of the earth through global warming or other bomb or something. We could potentially repopulate the world with the semen and the eggs that are in that facility as long with the germplasm from plants. And so trying to preserve those breeds is very, very important to me and something that I work with my students on. Here's several of my younger interns and washing up animals to go to the show. It just looks like a laundry line of sheep. The Caracal breed is the first domesticated sheep. This is Gandhi out of semen from the UK. They're a fat-tailed sheep. This is Augustina with her first set of twins. I just lost her now. She was born in 2005, but the Caracal is a hair breed rather than a wool breed, and my ethnic market with halal and kosher is growing specifically because of this breed. And again, less than 1,000 right now, probably closer to 500 in the U.S. Blue-faced Leicester is again brought in by semen. Those are crossbred babies there, but you can see that very strong Roman nose. And our American spinners and hand workers just can't find the fiber, enough of the fiber. And I take it off of the sheep, and it rolls out of the door. Again, as I indicated, when you bring in the Teeswater, Wensleydale, Blue-faced Leicesters, we have to use artificial insemination with sheep. The AI is not vaginal like you see with cattle or horses, but it's in laparoscopic intrauterine, and so we actually put the sheep upside down in the table and surgically place the semen into the oviduct, directly into the oviduct. So it's very expensive. It's probably around $300 to synchronize the animals, to buy the semen, to bring the technician out. And so when a lamb is born on the ground, it's already worth $300, not even considering any of the feed or anything. So it's an expensive process. But here's my first set of Wensleydales out of artificial insemination, a little set of triplets, and I love those babies. Teeswater, again, I use this. I now have 87 to 90%, but I started with my Teeswater at 25% with Pearl here, using AI that gives a 62.5% lamb. And so bringing these rare endangered breeds in is very costly and very slow process. As you work on a farm, I work with many neighbors, many small farmers, in fact, have toyed with the idea of going into business to do this. People don't know about the land. I live on the Wyoming border, and this first windstorm after my little barn was built, before I even brought in my animals, my fences were made with T-post, and tumbleweeds building up against the fence literally broke my T-post off. So it's been very difficult, and people just they're not aware of the cost. They're not aware of the work that goes into the animals. The year that I spent $300, $400 for a ton of hay, and I go through about 50 to 65 ton of hay, depending on the year, taught me a very valuable lesson that you cannot feed hay year-round because it's incredibly expensive, and you have to go and rent pasture. And so with renting pastures, I have made it more economical and more cost-effective. The animals here, many have blankets on. It's a pain in the hiney to keep those blankets on, but I need to keep the wool clean. Otherwise, I can't demand the premium that I do. When you're lambing, this shows my cell phone with -33. I didn't think quick enough. It was -39 that morning. And you get a lamb that's born on the ground, it only lives a very little bit if you're not there. It's very, very cold. You get some of them that's milk in that bottle. Some of them that you have to bring into the house and give a little bit of an extra start. And this is a tiny one that everyone chips in, even my little dog Bonnie. And you can see how tiny little Titanic was. She was born this last spring. The birth of life is why I keep doing it. I can't deny the feel of the land and what I grew up with every time a little baby is born. And again, these are things that I learned at my father's knee, that I work very, very hard to work with students. For me, it's about life balance. I need the physical, and I need to work with the animals, with my mental work every day. Otherwise, I couldn't survive. It's very important to me, and I love the babies. You can see the babies popping around. We create little steps for them, and they run and jump. It's funny watching the babies. But with my work here on campus, I had to bring in help, and that help that I brought in, not only taking care of the animals, was in my marketing and strategies to create the sales. I sell animals, as some are shown here. I've had some prize-winning fleeces. I work very hard on the fleeces. This is our line of caracal yarn that is in 4 yarn shops now and available online. These are the back of a hide as we harvest the animals for halal and kosher with the Islamic and Jewish community. I keep the hides and send them to be tanned and then sell the hides. I have an artist now that has started, this is an old Scandinavian art form called Skinfell, and she is doing some of the artwork, and they'll be available online as soon as we get our shop opened again. And the saying that I have is, we use everything but the ba of the animals, and that is music to our ears. And I didn't misspell music. That is my husband's name. So it's just a little bit of a play. We use, I compost any animals that I lose. My older rams are ground up, and I use it for dog meat. As a comparative nutritionist, I know how to supplement it accurately. So I use the horns, I sell the horns, we use everything. Mulching, we use everything but the ba. So my passions, the animals and the students, the youth that come out and help with the babies, I couldn't do without them, and what they learn is beyond measure. These are a couple of vet students. They come out and do lambing at night so that we can sleep, literally. My husband comes home and does the lambing for us. When we lose a lamb, here are two students necropsying the baby and just learning. Look at my little 12-year-old prodigy. Look at the look on her face as one of my college students walks through the process and shows her, and she's intending to be a veterinarian. The passion that you can create. Youth are our future, and if we don't get them involved with the animals and don't show them, how are we going to survive? I'm 60. What I know, what's in my mind, there's fewer and fewer of us that are available to teach that. You ask about sustainability. I use everything but the BA. I'm as cost effective. I support the local community. I use my guardian animals to protect it. I can use a shotgun and have used it, but prefer to use it in forms like this. And that's kind of a real quick version. And so if there's questions, is that what you were wanting? I went through it fast.
Oh, wow, really fast. You could have, as far as I'm concerned, we could talk for the next day. And again, I don't know how much you were been told about Deb and I and what we do, and there's some similarities. We're in a little different breed, for we're with alpacas, but Deb's a spinner and a weaver, and my daughter used to be a writer for Interweave and editor with Interweave. Also is still interested, still writes, but has gone to another agency. And we, dye our own yarn. They dye the yarn that they produce, and we're right in the middle of trying to figure out how the alpaca herd on a nationwide basis can be sustainable. Mm-hmm. And so, just quick question as it relates to the yarn side. When you're selling yarn of these rare breeds, what's a typical price that you're getting per skein today?
I think it's right now $20 for 4 ounces, so a skein would be $5 an ounce.
And I'm looking over at Deb. We get more than that, don't we?
But this is the caracal, and the caracal is more of a rug yarn. We're working the caracal and the Lincoln I use for rug yarns, and we're trying to build that rug yarn industry because of my commitment to those rare endangered breeds. My Wensleydale Teeswater, they're going to go probably $6 to $9 an ounce.
Okay, that's in the same range. That's the same range that we're in. What's the microns on those? Do you know what their AFD is for the
for some of the CVMs that I've brought in with Merino influence, I've gone as low as 11 to 13 microns, which is pretty fine. But my average CVM, my average CVM is probably 20. And as we go into the water,
it's Merino 11.
Yeah,
as you know.
That's why they call it Rocky Mountain Merino. Some of them will go higher, 25. But I've been working towards making it more fine, bringing in the Perrindale, bringing in the Bond, bringing in Romney, working with it to make a more versatile yarn and to improve the genetics because the gene pool is so small. And remember, they're in critical status, and trying to maintain the CVM, Romnedale CVM characters, but going through very strict flock improvement that they're using. My Teeswater Wensleydales, I would guess, I've not tested them, but I would say they're in the 30s.
You talked a couple times about your, I'll just call it your kosher market and such.
Uh-huh.
How does that relate to yarn? I think we all understand kosher because it relates to what people would eat, but do they follow the same sorts of practices as it relates to where they obtain garments? Is that where this fits, or is there something?
No, it's different than that. I have a systems approach. And the animals, I look at the whole system, and fiber is just my heart part of it. And so I'm breeding animals for fiber. And because I have the number of animals that I do, I maintain a flock of around 120 breeding animals. Maybe 20 replacement and 20 rams. And so 160 is my crux. That's where I maintain it, and that's not counting any of the lambs. So what I do is, in those replacement, I pick only the best of the best. But I have to do something with the remaining animals, and you can only have X number of breeding animals, and some of them are not quality. I don't like their fiber. I don't like their conformation. I don't like something about them. They don't have the strong breed characteristics that are important, and so I have to have a market for them. I prefer to market them to the halal or to the kosher rather than taking them to the sale barn, even though I will take a trailer to the sale barn this next Tuesday night. I even use the older animals. The older ewes I grind for our household. We use it instead of hamburger. When you're going to make chili or pizza or spaghetti. But for the main cuts, we use lamb, obviously. And I have a strong domestic local meat market. And I have D&T out of Loveland comes up and harvests the animals. So,
do you premium for the meat that's sold for the halal or the kosher market?
What do I do with that?
You get a premium? Are you able to get a premium price for those?
Not as of yet, because in fact my Islamic market halal is not as strong this year because I moved my prices up to match what was at Centennial. I match what's at Centennial, and they're not buying as many. The Jewish market is very, very strong. They come up out of Denver. A lot of them take them down into Jersey to the USDA plant there to be harvested. There's a few that will do the halal.
Now, just one more question. We could talk about your lamb business forever, but I want to get back to students and youth here in a minute. But on the hide side, where are you getting your hides processed? And it looks like you're taking the wool off, so they're removing the wool. Do you ever leave wool on for any of your hides for any purpose?
I do, and I sell a lot. I sold many up at Estes, and I always go down to Taos in October. The ones that are sheared, the ones that you saw there, are the ones that I use for my shinfeld. The rest with the full ones, I usually sell that way, or if the fleece isn't good enough. And so some of the animals are sheared, some of them are not. It's when I can bring the person there to harvest them. But once they're removed, we skive them, and what that means is you remove all of the tissue, all of the protein, all of the fat from it, and then using a non-iodized salt, you rub it in and let it dry for at least 48 hours before you take the salt off. And then I ship them, let them dry a little bit further, and then I ship them to Bucks County Fur in Pennsylvania. It's anywhere from 8 to 15, 16-week turnaround, and comes back, and I sell them online. I sell them again at Estes, Taos, and I have them in several shops.
Leaving your labor out, it sounded a little bit intensive on your end. Are you able to make money on that, on including the shipping and the cost that you're paying for the hide preparation?
What I usually do, let's say for a large hide right now, with the labor, for a large hide, like let's say a large ram hide, it would be $70 to $80 to tan it. I probably have $5 in it for shipping. That's, let's say, $90. I'm using intern labor, but let's say I did skive it, so that's another $10 for labor, so that's $100. And then I sell it for $200 to $275.
And what's the weight? That $5 sounded really cheap on the shipping side. So you're doing something to where you're getting a fairly inexpensive shipping.
I'm FedExing everything.
And so how are you holding them before you ship them? Are they being frozen, or how are you keeping them so they don't degrade?
Just what I do is I salt them and they're dried, and I have held them in my garage for a year and a half, depending on what supply I had. Why do more when you already have a supply down? And that's the largest mistake that I made when I started, is I didn't have my market in place. And it was very tight, and we're just coming out of that now. But it all took hiring another person, because when I work 80 to 90 hours on campus, I don't have time to do that. I have time to feed the animals, and work with the interns, but other than that, I needed another person.
So Ron asks, do you feed grain or sweet feed, or are they just getting grass and hay?
Okay, I'm an animal nutritionist, and I have my own formula. I feed grain several times of the year. When they are on pasture, I don't need to flush them, which means you prepare them for higher ovulation rates before breeding. But lately I have not done that. I feed them the last 6 weeks of pregnancy, because I've spent a lot of time researching, and I've done a lot of lecturing on how do you feed for fiber. And because the follicles, the setting down of secondary hair follicles is nutrition and environmental dependent. So I make sure that I feed them in those last 6 weeks using my supplement and a higher quality forage. And then in the first 6 to 8 weeks of lactation, and then all of the lambs are fed grain for at least 100 days to 120 days before they go to a half forage diet completely.
I said that was my last. I have one more. Do you shear annually?
I shear about 6 times a year. My fine wools, the Ramadale CVMs, I shear right before lambing. Otherwise, the fiber micron, I've worked to get so they'll break when they lamb. And so all of my fine wools I will shear in January. The rest of them I will shear when I have a 5-inch staple. They're the long wools, the Teeswater, Wensleydales, Lincolns, all of the others, BFLs, I want a 5-inch staple, and so I'll shear when they need it. My next shear date is September 12th. I try to set it ahead of time. And I
what do you pay
about a month ago.
What do you pay per animal for shear?
When I pay for animals is $6 for a ewe, $10 for a larger ewe, $12 for a ram, and I give a $150 setup.
Has anybody told you ever what us idiots pay for getting alpaca sheared?
$30-some an animal.
Isn't that crazy? We don't pay that much because we have one of the larger herds in the state, but that is the average. And I've talked to a lot of shearers who say it's a lot easier to shear an alpaca than it is to shear a sheep, and yet they pay us 6 or 7 times as much. We'll keep taking the money as long as we get paid.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that we created for ourselves as an industry 30 years ago, really, but it's something we got to move out of. Let's move away from sheep, although, like I said, I could talk forever. Whoa, I got one more. Quads. You had one set of quads. Are they really that rare? I'm assuming they are.
I've had maybe in my years 4 to 5 sets of quads. I've had buku triplets, but only 4 to 5 set of quads.
And
but these are not your polypay fin crosses.
Yeah. Back to students. Those interns. Are those interns that are doing what they're doing for class purposes to meet requirements, or are they interns that just are doing it because they think it's going to help their careers and they enjoy it and so on? What mix do you have?
Okay, I have a lot of them. I have animal science students that want that hands-on experience. Most of them are city kids, and they want to learn to work with the animals, but no one will hire them because they don't have the experience. Well, how can they learn if they don't get experience? So they're getting class credit for it. For the lambing, I have vet students coming out. I have 2 to 3 vet students come out every night for about 6 weeks, and they do that purely for the experience, and believe me, they need it. I have had full-fledged veterinarians, small animal veterinarians come out and provide just work for me just to get the experience. Again, what I have in my head, what I was taught at my father's knee. You can read every book, but until you do it, and you know that with working with your animals, you can't smell, and I'm a voracious reader, but you can't smell the smells, you can't feel the feels. There's so much tactile learning that is needed to work with animals. You walk into a pen, even with some of the video games now that Pfizer has called walking the pens. I can walk into a lot and I know which animal's not feeling good if one is feeling bad, just because I am fine-tuned to my animals, just by their behavior. You don't learn that out of a book. You don't learn that overnight. So they're coming to learn to get started.
And how many at any given time is sort of an optimum for you that you have?
How many what?
How many interns at any given time would be an optimum number that you have?
This summer I had 4. Most semesters I have 6 to 7. They give me 45 hours per 1 credit. Most of them will do 2 credits. And so I get 90 hours of free labor if they come up, and it's a long drive, and so for every trip they come up, I give them $10 in fuel, and I feed them until they're busting. So I feed them and fuel their vehicles for the internship.
Are we, in your opinion, what's the status of 30 years from now with the students that we're graduating? Are we going to meet our needs from an agriculture perspective, or are we in dire straits moving ahead?
We're in dire straits. The pipeline is full, and as a result of that, I think the numbers are in the next, by 2020, we need 56,000. The estimates out of the Purdue study say we need 56,000 students a year. We're producing 25,000. So the numbers are not there, and this is worldwide, and it's critical in the fact that we might graduate students, but if they don't have that hands-on knowledge, they're not as valuable as those that do. And we see right now individuals going into the USDA, going into the EPA, they're going into the government agencies to make decisions on agriculture, and they don't know what they're talking about. And many of the decisions, policy regulation decisions that are made into agriculture are being made by non-ag people because there are not enough agriculture trained students. We're aware of that. We're trying to correct that at the university. Is one of the focuses. It's one of my focus in my 10 years as I served as associate dean, and even though I'm stepping back from that role, I will continue my march to increase hands-on learning.
And you must have some opinions about how we can do that. What are some of your thoughts? What could we be doing a little different? How could we improve that?
A lot of it is I have worked through our system in the College of Agricultural Sciences now. All of its majors have statewide articulation agreements with the community colleges. The community colleges are still teaching a lot of the hands-on, so I have built relationships with those community colleges and urging them to teach the hands-on, because often at the collegiate level it's difficult for us to get a hands-on class approved because it's considered vo-tech, and the collegiate curriculum, they don't want to approve it. And so what we're trying to do is to find certificates, to create certificates for hands-on expertise, and it's changing a mindset within the university setting, and it's very slow. The university moves. I've even thought about opening my own school.
And let's say you did that. What would be your constraints if you decided, if you took that direction? What would be your biggest challenges other than the financial?
It's cost. It's cost. It's very slow, but I think I've kind of done that with my internship program, with what I have now with Anaruns. If I can train, let's say 6 students a semester and 4 in the summer, that's 16 to 20 students in a year I'm training. And do they have it 100%? No, but are they aware? Absolutely. Right. And then 60-some vet students every spring. They may only be there once or twice to help with lambing, but there's just that much more. Even our faculty of the 120 faculty, 20-some faculty in the collegiate level, maybe only 20 of us have that hands-on agricultural background.
Is that right? That's the number. So only 20 out of the ag staff even has hands-on.
Yeah.
Again, Nancy, this has been so fun. I could talk forever. We've got 3 minutes left to coming up on the hour. Ron asked another follow-on question about medicated sweet feed. What's your feelings about that?
I don't use medicated. The only medication that, and I don't call it it's not medicated, there's no withdrawal, is Decox for coccidia. I don't use any antibiotics unless I have an animal that is ill. And I temp it and make sure that it is validated that the antibiotic will be of value. I use vitamin A, D, E if needed. I know that you need the D for your alpaca because of rickets. I have done a lot of alpaca nutrition and have taught that. I used to be on the AOBA board for 5-6 years when it was first started. But medicated, I don't use, just Decox for coccidia that the birds brought in. Does that help, Ron?
We'll see if he chimes back. Do you not have? You must not have as extensive a parasite issues, or you're not bringing animals in from places where parasites are greater, like we do with alpacas. Is that right? Are she less prone to the parasite issues?
What I do is when you're in dry lot, a good share of the time I had not had as much, but now that I'm using pasture, I'm seeing more parasite. I have a group out in brush that I found out were exposed to the barber pole worm with some boar goats, and so now we're having to take some intensive measures to alleviate that. So, but with pasture, I worm several times a year.
You and Deb can compare notes on barber poles sometime. We didn't see it at all, right, Deb, for 8 years until we brought animals in from Ohio. So
yeah.
We've got barber pole now. So anyway, well, different story. We're coming up on the end of it. Do you have any other questions from all out there on the okay. Well, Nancy, this has been awesome. I like to end with one last question that I ask, and I'm going to change it around a little for you. Let's pretend that tomorrow morning you were to wake up and it was really clear you're not on the planet Earth anymore. You still got you're still at a place where it's a lot like Earth. There's no sheep there anymore. You're being taken care of. Your basic needs are taken care of, and you find you've got $500. And a lot of times I say a laptop, but let's say it's either a laptop or a book or something that you'd like. What would you find yourself doing over the next 7 days?
If all of my needs are met, I would weave. I would weave. I would create a nest. I believe fervently that we have beauty around us, and in what we create, I would weave.
Awesome.
Work with fiber.
Do you have anything else, Nancy, that you'd like to throw out to the group here before we stop?
No. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.
All right. Well, you said that CSU. I'm sure you can find you through the online and look up the email address and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So it's annarunes13@gmail.com.
Well, everybody, this has been awesome. I hope you've enjoyed it like I have. I'm going to hang on with Nancy and just say hi to her after we go offline for just a second and thank her. But we thank all of you for being here. We'll be back again in a couple weeks with another one of our guests. And as you've been seeing, we've been doing some of these in between now, and we're using this Periscope app and Meerkat as ways to get the word out a little bit more about what we're doing. We thank all of you. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks, and come out and visit us at our ranch sometime, or be an intern for Nancy. Get your hands dirty, get them into the animals and so on, and we'll make this a better planet. Thanks so much, Nancy. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.